Have you ever looked around one day and realized that the people you once laughed with are no longer there? Not because of a fight, not because of betrayal, but because life quietly pulled you in different directions. Most people believe friendship is about fun, about shared jokes, late nights, and good memories. But true friendship reveals itself not in moments of comfort, but in moments of collapse. And this story is about a man who learned that lesson the hard way. In a modest American town where mornings were slow and streets felt familiar, lived a young man named Daniel Carter. Daniel was known as the reliable one. He worked a steady job at a local manufacturing company, paid his bills on time, and kept to himself. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't loud. He was the kind of person people described as doing fine. But fine was not fulfilled. Years earlier, Daniel had been inseparable from his best friend, Lucas. They grew up on the same block, went to the same school, shared the same dreams. As kids, they promised each other they would never drift apart. They talked about success, about building something meaningful, about always having each other's backs. But life happened.
Daniel moved to another city.
Chasing bigger opportunities,
Lucas stayed behind.
choosing stability over risk. At first, they called each other often, then weekly, then monthly. Eventually, silence replaced the connection. Daniel told himself it was normal, that friendships fade, that everyone gets busy. But deep down, something felt missing. Years passed, and Daniel's life stayed predictable. Wake up, work, come home, repeat. His days blended together, and his dreams quietly shrank into getting through the week. Then came the setback. One afternoon, Daniel was called into his manager's office and told the company was downsizing. His position was being eliminated. Just like that, the structure of his life collapsed. He walked home that day in a daze. The streets looked the same, but everything felt different. Without work to distract him, the loneliness became louder. Friends he thought he had were suddenly unavailable. Some offered polite sympathy, others disappeared completely. That night, sitting alone in his apartment, Daniel scrolled through his phone and stopped on an old contact, Lucas. They hadn't spoken in years. Daniel hesitated. Pride told him not to reach out. Fear told him not to bother. But something deeper, something honest, pushed him to send a simple message. "Hey man, I hope you're doing well." He didn't expect a reply. But minutes later, his phone buzzed. "Daniel, I've been thinking about you. Call me." That conversation lasted hours. Lucas didn't rush him, didn't judge him, didn't try to fix everything. He listened, truly listened. And when Daniel finally stopped talking, Lucas said something that changed everything. "You don't need to go through this alone. You never did." A week later, Daniel drove back to town. They sat on the same old bench where they used to talk as teenagers, watching the sun dip behind familiar buildings. For the first time in years, Daniel felt understood. Not because his problems disappeared, but because someone stood beside him in them. Lucas shared his own struggles, the failures, the nights he wanted to quit, the times he wished Daniel had been there. Success hadn't come easily for him either. It came with loneliness, doubt, and pressure. That's when Daniel realized something powerful. True friendship isn't about always being present. It's about showing up when it matters most. Lucas didn't just offer encouragement, he offered accountability. Every morning, he called Daniel, not to motivate him, but to remind him he wasn't invisible. He helped Daniel update his resume. They talked through goals Daniel had buried years ago. Lucas didn't sugarcoat things, but he never made Daniel feel small. "You're capable," he said one morning, "but you forgot because you've been walking alone." Slowly, Daniel changed. He became disciplined again, not because he was chasing success, but because someone believed in him when he didn't believe in himself. He applied for jobs with confidence. He learned new skills. He he stopped settling for fine. Months later, Daniel landed a better role than the one he lost, but more importantly, he regained something far more valuable than a job: connection. One evening, as they sat together, laughing like old times, Daniel looked at Lucas and said, "You didn't just help me get back on my feet, you reminded me who I was." Lucas smiled. That's what real friends do. We don't let each other forget. Daniel understood now that true friendship isn't built on convenience, it's built on loyalty, honesty, and the courage to stand with someone when life strips them down. Some people walk with you when you're winning. True friends walk with you when you're rebuilding. And if you are listening to this story right now, feeling alone, remember this: you don't need a crowd. You need one person who sees you, one person who challenges you, one person who refuses to let you give up on yourself. That is the power of true friendship. And when you find it, protect it. True friendship doesn't always come with loud words or dramatic moments. Sometimes it shows up quietly and stays when everyone else leaves. If one person in your life has ever stood by you when you felt lost, struggling, or unseen, have you ever stopped to thank them? And if you don't have that kind of friend yet, could you become that person for someone else? Because success feels empty when there's no one to share it with, but struggle becomes lighter when you don't carry it alone. If this story resonated with you, share it with someone who has stood by you or someone who needs to hear that they're not alone. Subscribe to the channel for more stories that remind you who you are and what truly matters. Because somewhere out there, someone needs this message today, and your subscription helps us reach them. Until next time, remember, success is powerful, but true friendship is priceless.